Hello again, welcome back everyone. LiquorHound here with you, and thank you for joining me once again for another spirit review video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the latest from the Dewars Double Double line, that being the Magma Stone edition. Now, what that typically refers to is the fact that they're using basically heated lava rocks, these magma stones, heated up to very specific temperatures, just like the high 390s, low 400s, and then they put them into this metal like half moon shaped thing that kind of goes into the barrels as they're on their sides, and it kind of rotates and it toasts them over like an hour period. Okay, so that's what basically is the special thing about this one. Of course, the Double Double line has been around going back all the way to this 21. That was originally just Oloroso. They've done PX casks and stuff like that. But what it all means is that it's basically a 4-stage maturation process that they do. The malts that they acquire from different distilleries, of course, come in barrels, so that's one. The single grains, same way, come in barrels, so that's the first touching of wood. And then you go into the second phase where they blend the grains together and they go into barrels. They blend the malts together and they go into barrels. And then finally, they blend the two components together, which are then another stage of barrel maturation. And then finally, they go into the finishing cast, whether it be the Oloroso, the PX, or in this case, the Magma Stone casks. Of course, they are using French Limousine oak, so it should impart some baking spices. But Stephanie Macleod of Dewars said that the reason she got this idea and how she got the idea was from the wine industry, because several French wineries have been doing this before. And she says it kind of gets rid of the char and ashy notes that could be contributed if you're just doing it by the natural ways of fire and stuff like that. But let's go ahead and get to the tasting of it. It is 46% ABV. Retail pricing on it is usually about $130, although I have found it, I would say, much cheaper than that before, so keep a lookout for these. You might be able to find it anywhere from $100 to $130, okay? And that's for a 750 ml. They don't do the little half bottles like they used to do anymore. For these, they're just strictly 750, okay? All right, here we go. On the nose, Magma. Dewar's 21-year-old. So it's definitely a nice golden hue to this. Okay. This one's a little more into like the pastry realm. It's like graham crackers or some kind of powdered sugar on a croissant type thing. It's like a doughy, sweet aspect. And then you get into the fruits, and it's kind of like a golden, like a pear, golden raisins, a little bit of that apple as well. But again, everything's on that kind of lighter spectrum. It's not into the deeper, like the red, the dark raisins or the red apples. There's a light nuttiness to it. Oh my goodness. Light nuttiness. And a good amount of baking spice, which again, that French, that Limousine oak will sometimes kick that up. But I do like how it's really balanced as far as the fruit, the sweetness, everything seems soft and round. Now, one thing I should mention before tasting it is that this bottle has been open for at least now going on 2 months. Because when I first tasted it, I felt like it was a little spice driven, and I wanted to see what was going to happen with air, so I went ahead and drank a little bit down. We shared it with friends, and now we are going to review it because I think this is where it's going to shine. 2 months in, has some time to air. Same thing for this 21 Olo. But here we go, on the taste. Wow, nice. Very cool. I'm checking that transition. There is a transition where it goes into a tobacco. Pretty heavy tobacco on the back end. It's almost like where you would expect the char to come in. It comes off like a cigar tobacco. But here we go, starting at the very beginning. Medium high viscosity. It's really nice for that price point. Enters with those kind of, it's a combination of those pastry fruits, right? You get that pastry tones that I was mentioning on the nose. They come through on the palate, the croissant, the powdered sugar. And then you get that kind of golden apple, that Yeah, that golden apple, golden. There's actually plum. There's a little plumminess to it as well. The golden raisin is in there, but it's underneath the pear and the golden and the yellow apple. Ooh, that little graham cracker thing. And then right as you hit that mid palate, you get that little warming of that baking spice. It starts to shift and turn. And that's where it goes into a little bit of like old leather. That's where it starts showing the age right there. Old leather, not quite waxy, but really nice old leather. A little bit of that tobacco leaf that I was talking about is in there, and cocoa powder. Lots of cocoa powder in on top of that oak. Still the fruits, the plums especially, are still running throughout. But I really like how it stays lighter and fresher than what the Olos and the PX Sherry ones did. You know, they kind of lean on those aspects, on those finishing casks. And that's great if that's what you're really wanting. But when you want something that's just a little more focused on the grain and malt spirit alone, then something like this is perfect because all you're doing is you're just toasting the wood to give it that good kind of characteristic, but it's nothing that's going to like cover up the distillate, right? Yeah. Now you could serve this on a big rock. It's going to be perfect. Even though it's only 46%, with that baking spice, I think this on a rock is going to be great, or just one little ice cube in there, it'd be perfect. I just love how that transition happens. It almost reminds me of certain old Milton Duffs that do that, where they transition onto a tobacco chocolate thing onto the back end. This does it wonderfully with that rich leather. Okay, double rinse. And for grins, we're going to take a look at the Olo 21. That thing is still rolling. Okay. Same exact thing. Instead of the Magma cask, just going into Oloroso casks, all right? Yeah, it's always a good one, though. When these first came out, they were only in the 375 mLs. And now, of course, we're seeing them in the 750s. Now, the crazy thing that I've been witnessing lately on these is the price points. So sometimes I see the small bottles for like $80, and then other times I'll see the big bottles for $80. So you have to look around, kind of shop around, because depending on how old they are, they could be cheaper, because back in the day they were cheaper. Um, and then sometimes I guess people are trying to get rid of old stock, so you see the big bottles going on sale. It's it's all over the map, but keep an eye out and you can usually find a good deal. And just like as I mentioned, it definitely leans more on the Oloroso casks. There's a little more smoky element to this one. But of course, you're into the deeper, darker, the figs, the dates. Even a little bit of prunes in here. Nuttiness is ramped up just a little more than over here. Over here was almost like a kind of like a sweet almond pastry, right? And over here, whoa, wow, that the spice component on this one's really wild. You've got a lot of that cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, but then there's also a little bit of cardamom. Really nice. But of course, you get that. It's just darker overall. It's just more of a brooding whiskey. But let's go ahead and taste it. Boom. That's lovely. Does not get the spice swell that this one had. This one has a little more of that impact of the baking spices mid palate. This one really doesn't do that. This one kind of enters, and of course that was just the first sip. I would call this one medium, almost medium high viscosity. Definitely seems softer, but I think this one had a touch more viscosity. Okay, but as it enters, you're entered it here with more of that almost like molasses, brown sugar, sweetened tone, right? That's what you're getting there. It's a darker sugar. And then you're getting kind of that plum baked apples, but they're baked down really well. The figs, the dates, the raisins in this one, you definitely are going to pick the raisin out in here. And then you doesn't really like this one hit the mid palate and then dove transition. This one kind of evolves real slowly as it just twists onto the back end, because here you start noticing that the chocolate's dropping in, and it's like nothing that clicks, it just slowly evolves into that dark chocolate. A little bit of that leather, but this one's mostly on the chocolate tone on the back end. Little whisper of that tobacco, but this one was much brighter on that. This one feels to me more like an after dinner drink. Like you want to just sit down, if you maybe you're used to grabbing a brandy, a cognac, something like that. This would fit that bill really nicely after dinner. This one almost feels like it could happen anytime, preferably probably pre-meal for this one, just nice after work, something to share with friends, real simple. I like that about the Magma. But hopefully you can find these out there in the store near you. Of course, if you like this kind of unbiased content, because I did buy both of these bottles with my own money, I don't ask anybody or ask distilleries for bottles. So if you want to support this kind of content, please join me over at patreon.com/LiquorHound, where it's for as little as $5 a month. You can sit there and you'll get the complete library. You're going to get these videos 2 weeks early and ad-free. And again, most importantly, you're helping support this channel and keep it going, okay? But regardless of platform, I greatly appreciate each and every one of my viewers. Everyone have a great day, and cheers.